Over the weekend, the White House decided to tweet something curious considering the fact that the area has been noticeably warmer for this time of the year. And so here's what the tweet said. First snow of the year, and then they had this image of the White House with snow. Now the reason why this is strange is because the US Mid-Atlantic and Northeast is setting records for high temperatures. It has been insanely warm for this time of the year in that area. And so,
snow.
As you know, this is a topic that you've done a really good job reporting on, John.
Thank you.
Climate change is not only real, we are seeing the consequences of it today in the form of extreme weather conditions, in record-setting temperatures. And so, look, whenever we talk about climate change, I think it's really important to discuss ways in which we can force the country to do better, right? So if we just rely on the politicians we have in office right now, I don't think we're gonna get anywhere, okay? But we as consumers have a lot of power. And so if we follow the money and see how these fossil fuel companies are being financed, we have a strategy that could be highly effective. So there was a great piece written in the New York Times. Bill McKibben was one of the writers. And here's what it said. We want people to understand that the money inside the vaults of banks like Chase is driving the climate crisis. Cutting off that flow of cash may be the single quickest step we can take to rein in the fossil fuel industry and slow the rapid warming of the earth. So they actually staged a protest and did civil disobedience. Some people got arrested in order to raise awareness about this. And if you can recall, some of these big banks have actually stopped financing gun manufacturers. And so this is a very effective strategy. Let me give you more. In the last 3 years, according to data compiled in a recently released fossil fuel finance report card by a group of environmental organizations, JP Chase lent over $195 billion to gas and oil companies. Wells Fargo lent over $151 billion, Citibank lent over $129 billion, and Bank of America lent over $106 billion. Since the Paris Climate Accord, which 195 countries agreed to in 2015, JP Chase has been the world's largest investor in fossil fuels by a 29% margin. In Minnesota, for example, the Line 3 pipeline replacement project, financed in part by JP Chase, adds 337 miles of crude oil carrying pipeline across Minnesota.
Wow.
So what can you do as a consumer, as an activist? What is an easy way to apply pressure to these big banks so they stop financing fossil fuel companies? Well, you take your money out of these big banks and you invest in a financial institution that refuses to finance fossil fuel companies. So look, we talk about our partner on this show a lot, and the reason why we've partnered with them is because they do not, under any circumstance, finance fossil fuels. That's Aspiration. Aspiration is a financial institution that rewards good environmentally conscious behavior. So if you're using your debit card, for instance, at some of these environmentally conscious places like Reformation, that's my favorite clothing store. They make all their clothing here in the United States, and they make sure that they do so in a sustainable way. If you use your card there, you get some rewards, like some points and stuff like that. So check that out. Warby Parker, Tom's, Blue Apron, all of these other companies are listed on their website. But look, the most important thing is they do not finance the fossil fuel industry. Take your money out of these big banks, put it in Aspiration or any other bank that has made a similar pledge.
Yeah, and I think we need to get people to focus on this, because I think that over the past couple of decades, a lot of people have gotten much better about understanding how their consumer choices contribute or don't contribute to some of these sorts of things. And even I think TYT has been a great example of an organization that's helped people understand how campaign finance leads to certain political and economic outcomes. So we get how giving money to certain politicians can contribute to certain industries being benefited. But then like the whole time that this is going on, while we're doing all of this, our money's sitting somewhere and being used to finance exactly the opposite of our political values.
That's such a, John, you put that in such a good, easy to understand way, because look, even if you're not personally investing in fossil fuel companies, when you're keeping your money, your savings in one of these banks, let's say a CD, for instance, right? A CD is where they'll pay you interest, but you can't touch your money for an agreed upon time. What do you think they do with that money? You think they just keep it in the bank? No, they use that money to finance other companies, corporations, whatever it is. So you might be unwittingly financing fossil fuel companies by keeping your savings in these banks.
Yeah.
And so be mindful of that, be aware of that. I'm pretty sure if these banks notice a mass exit of customers, they'll be aware that their behavior, their financing habits are causing a problem for their own business model.
Well, and the example that you pointed out with with guns, I think, shows that they can be influenced. And we need to put influence on, we need to put that sort of financial pressure on them, but also on the fossil fuel industries, because right now it is increasingly rare for these companies to be able to compete on cost for certain types of renewable energy. If you are trying to make money off of like coal or methane or whatever, it's becoming more difficult. It won't take much more to flip it in even more areas. We just need to make the cost of doing business a little bit more difficult for them. And remember, they've been subsidized so much over so many decades. We could flip this thing nationally, but it's gonna take everybody working together.
Exactly, exactly. Look, I love the activism that I'm seeing. Young people are fired up, they're getting involved. The amount of discussion that's taking place on climate change is inspiring, because just like 2 years ago, this was not the case.
Yeah.
And so if you do want to get active, if you are interested in taking your money out of one of these big banks and transferring it over to a decent financial institution that doesn't want to invest in fossil fuel companies, please check out Aspiration, aspiration.com/TYT to learn more.
TYT is all about challenging and disrupting the status quo, and so is Aspiration. Aspiration does not invest your money into fossil fuel businesses that harm our planet, such as pipelines and oil drilling. Instead, you'll be able to fight climate change with tools like AIM, the Aspiration Impact Measurement, and Planet Protection. They also don't hit you with outrageous fees for you to access your own money. You can even earn cash back and get free ATM uses up to 5 times a month. Head to aspiration.com/TYT to learn more. For a limited time, get 30 days of free TYT membership when you sign up.